The Corporate Transparency Act. Attention business owners everywhere. This one's for you. Hey, I'm Morgan Davis. I'm a cannabis attorney in Raleigh, North Carolina. Let's talk about how to keep your business protected and thriving. Beginning January 1, 2024, all businesses will have to report to the Department of Treasury information about their company, including the things you would think of: address, EIN, but also the names of the owners. Why? Why does this matter? Maybe to some of you that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's to catch bad actors who are using things like corporate shells and lots of different holding companies to avoid liability, to launder money, and to commit other, what we would say, no-nos. So what it does is basically you have to file this report of information with the Department of Treasury. They're going to create a database of all companies that are not exempt under this rule with the relevant information. Some of that information, when it comes to company officials, includes a picture, a passport, or other government-issued ID. So we're not talking like just a little bit of information about you, including your name and email address. This is verifying that you are who you say you are based on what the government already knows about you. Big deal. So there's no more playing, oh, I don't own it. You can't tell whether or not I own that company. I don't have to file with the Secretary of State whether or not it's my company. Maybe you don't have to file with the Secretary of State, but the Department of Treasury is going to know. So the idea of anonymity kind of goes away a little bit. Now, this database will not be publicly available, and it's not subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements, meaning you can't, as any person in the United States, request this information and have it sent to you under the Freedom of Information Act. It's only going to be available to those officials who have a legitimate reason for seeking it. Think law enforcement, think the IRS, think other government agencies who are investigating companies for bad doings or particular people for bad doings. Now, I'm sure at some point this is probably going to be abused by somebody and we're all going to be upset about it, and it's going to ruffle feathers. But it seems like the heart's in the right place. We want to avoid people who are trying to avoid liability. Who does this apply to? Well, it applies to every single domestic corporation filed after January 1, 2024, and some foreign corporations. Now, there are exemptions. There are 23 specific exemptions. We're not going to go through all of those. A few examples are tax-exempt entities are exempt from this requirement. Publicly traded companies are exempt from this requirement, mostly because all of that information is already public. Large companies, and large has a specific definition in the statute based on how many employees you have and your gross revenue, as well as number of years in business and a number of other factors. And then inactive entities. So if the entity has simply not been used for a long period of time and is not transacting any business, and I mean any business. It's like you can't have had any more than $1,000 go back and forth in that entity for the past year. Those are exempt. However, for most people in the United States who have formed a company or are going to form a company that does not fall within these exemptions, you will have to file this report. And failure to comply with this requirement actually comes with some real teeth attached to it. It's not a slap on the wrist, it's not a warning letter. You can be fined $500 a day for each violation, up to $10,000, or receive up to 2 years in prison for not filing a report. It's a big deal. So you have to do this, and it needs to become part of the things that you consider when forming a company, when dissolving a company, when doing your governance documents. When do you have to comply? If your company was formed before January 1st, 2024, you have until January 1st, 2025 to comply with the filing. If you form during 2024, so January 1, 2024 to December 31st, 2024, you have 90 days from the date of filing with your Secretary of State to comply. After 2024, so January 1st, 2025 and beyond, you have 30 days from the date of filing to comply. You also have to update your filing with the Department of Treasury in the event that a beneficial owner, and there's a statutory definition to that, a beneficial owner in the company or a company official that you have identified and filed in your previous filing, or any of your company information, if any of those three categories changes, you have to file a new report within 30 days of that change. So these are very quick filing deadlines, and they are specific, and they come with significant penalties if not complied with. So moving into 2024, you got all these big goals. You're going to grow a business. You're going to create a new business. You're off to the races. That's great. Let's make sure that you are complying with the new Corporate Transparency Act. Corporate formation, reorganization, governance, dissolution. Do not ignore this. This needs to become part of what you do when running your business. If you're not sure what you need to do, how you need to do it, when you need to do it, give us a call. We'll help you decide when, where, and how.